Welcome to Lynn Cullen Live, talk radio without the static. Email your questions and comments to lynn@pghcitypaper.com. And now your host, Lynn Cullen.
And welcome to a beautiful, sunny February 24th, 2021. I'm Lynn Cullen, going to spend the next hour or so with you talking about news and stuff. Well, the big shocking news yesterday that knocked all the other news off for most of the afternoon was, of course, the horrible car accident with Tiger Woods at the wheel. And I was home and I turned on the television and was really simply astounded that CNN, that's who I turned on, literally dropped absolutely everything else happening in the world, in the country, even around the corner, and focused solely on this car accident. And I thought to myself, okay, I get it. He's a celebrity, blah, blah, blah. And, but surely they're going to get back to telling us about some of these pretty important hearings going on Capitol Hill, and a lot of other news regarding vaccines and COVID, and not to mention, just a million other important stuff going on. And I turned it off in disgust because they literally, as far as I could tell, decided to do absolutely nothing else. So they do what they do. This is what we talked a few weeks ago about, how this is Jeff Zucker, the mastermind who frankly gave us President Donald Trump as well, and gave us reality television, and gave us this iteration of so-called news on CNN, which is to create one big story. So if you'll recall, you used to be able, and it's I guess some time ago now, 10 years ago maybe, if you wanted a general news of the nation and the world, you tuned to CNN and you got it, because they actually covered the world and covered the nation. And so you would get that news. Well, that's long gone, as we know. And so for the last 4, even 5 years, it's been Trump TV. And anything that allows them to attract your eyeballs and hold them is what they sit on. And media's power to hold our attention, when our attention is one of the most important things we possess. We supposedly have the power to decide what will be the thing that takes our time, our precious time, our attention. And many of us, I think long ago, ceded what is our own power to do that over to television, whatever, you name whatever it is that you've surrendered to, the internet. And I don't know, it got me into a real mood yesterday. And I thought, I turned it off later, I think it was around 8 o'clock last night. I turned it on again and thought, surely they're not still. Because what was apparent was they knew very little, right? There was no news other than Tiger Woods was in a horrific car crash. He was injured severely. We were told he's in surgery. It appears not to be life-threatening, and that's what we knew. Okay, and throughout the day, no more information became available. So with that little bit of news, they did what they've always done. They engaged in speculation. They took that little bit of information and started riffing on it. They invited other reporters who had covered him, the last guy who played a little round of golf with him. They talked to doctors. And what do you think would be going? The woman they often have on talking about coronavirus, and Sanjay Gupta, who they have on talking about coronavirus, they were on talking about what would have happened when they took Tiger to the hospital. How would they immediately have assessed him? What are the possibilities of what could be wrong? And this is news. I'm just saying. This is the journalism student. I got a degree in journalism back when I think it used to mean something, and there was a sense of the responsibility that journalists have to tell people not what they want to know, not engage in gossip, but what they need to know to be good citizens. And of course, the Jeff Zuckers of the world decided long ago, well, that's boring. That ain't going to make us some money we are in business to attract. And so we have what now passes for news. This obsessive view of one story at a time, taking this just the measliest bit of information and weaving it into fantasies and stories and what ifs and do you suppose and oh my. It's as if he died and we were doing obituaries all day. Okay, that's my rant. That's my rant. And now in regard to why they decided that this was big enough to knock a global pandemic and an effort by the United States Congress to get a handle on what the hell happened when there was an attempted insurrection and blood spilled in the Capitol building. Just, some of the things that were going on, other than a single vehicle toppling down a hillside with a very famous man in it. Now, in filling my time and deciding where my attention should go in the last few weeks, did happen upon the HBO documentary titled Tiger. And I thought, well, watch it. My mother loves him, always has. I watched it. And I have to tell you, it gave me an appreciation for what this now man endured as a child. He didn't have a childhood. He had two stage parents, mostly his dad, but his mom complicit as well. And, he was doing TV appearances at the age of 2. So he was brought up like a lot of child stars, be they on film or on a golf course, to entertain and to be the best. And on top of it, his father, who you get to know, was nuts. I'm sorry, was nuts. And really thought and told him that Tiger was going to be like Mahatma Gandhi. Tiger was going to save the world. That's the because he was a mixture of the world ethnically. racially. And because of his extraordinary skill and his dazzling smile and his extraordinary athletic gift. And boy, you get a sense of how you end up with the mess that has been much of his life and the triumph as well. So when I heard this happen, my new sense of him, it touched me. It did. I thought, oh my God, you know, how much more is this guy supposed to take? But getting CNN's attention for 24/7 is just unbelievable to me. I don't know. So I do recommend that if you have HBO, I think it's HBO, right? I do recommend that. I started watching last night Allen versus Farrow, which is about, of course, Woody Allen and his alleged molestation of one of his daughters, if not two of his daughters, one of whom is now his wife. And wow, that's something as well. Just saying, if you're looking for stuff, if you like biography, okay, that's all I'm saying. Okay, now I have to get into something that I've been worrying about. You know, I share my worries with you. I'm sure you appreciate that immensely. And it has to do with this new America, or I can hear all the black people saying, New America? Welcome to our America. Okay, you're right. To this violent, sort of threatening America. Americans is what I'm talking about. And are so many Americans who are just flat out scary now. They're openly carrying weapons. They're saying they're in a war. They're talking in apocalyptic and militaristic manners. And they have a former president who they still think is president, and on and on. I'm talking about those guys, okay? Because as I've said ad infinitum, they ain't going anywhere. They are not. And they are continuing to be, even without their leader in the White House, they are continuing to be nurtured and misinformed by the right-wing media universe, which is big, huge, with the aid, of course, of social media, and with the aid, and this is the biggie, of one of America's two major political parties. And so any Republican who is a Republican will be at this CPAC convention, right, this weekend. The exiled cult leader, Trump, will be there. God knows what his bellicose, lying oration will be. But all of this is keeping these people, perhaps a third of the country, wrapped, and is keeping them where the Trumps of the world, the Fox Newses of the world want them to be, which is in a state of constant agitation, rage, and sense of imminent loss of their standing and their country. So the fact that you have a big media universe, one of the major political parties, an exiled, still not ever conceding defeated president, all fanning this with the aid of the mainstream media, the CNNs of the world, who, well, are the proverbial rubberneckers. So I keep seeing stories that just blow me away at how prevalent this kind of dangerous stuff is, and how many people have succumbed to it, and how they are terrorizing the citizenry. So I read, and the two stories I want to share with you are both out of New England. I'm not, normally you wouldn't think of New England. You think of independent, hardy folk. They tend to send Democrats or relatively moderate or even independents to the Congress, right? But boy, they got their crazies, and boy, are they starting to act up. So first, I take you to Maine. And what's been happening in Maine is that a group called Beacon for Sovereignty, don't even ask me what the hell that's supposed to mean, has been openly, with armed members, trying to disrupt vaccination sites. Can you imagine? You finally got your appointment. You're going to get your vaccine. And you bump into a bunch of these crazy, large, white, knuckle-dragging idiots. And they're fired up. And they have reason to be fired up because they have bought into this, I guess, latest conspiracy theory that the government is injecting, the devil in the vaccine into you. And they believe that with the vaccine, the government is trying to commit genocide against us. Yeah, I'm not kidding you. That's what these guys think. And damn, because they see themselves as patriots, they're going to try to save their fellow Americans. And they're going to try to disrupt these government-run vaccinations that people are just like idiots willingly going into to have the devil put in them. There's a video of a woman who's with her young daughter. They're both wearing masks. And she's walking by these guys, and they're screaming at her that she's a child abuser because her daughter is wearing a mask. Okay, that's just one. They have vowed spiritual war. So this, again, there is a mass psychosis in this country. And in some ways, it scares me as much, if not more, than the pandemic. We got a vaccine for the pandemic. We have no such thing for this mass psychosis, which endangers us all. And then there was a story today Oh my God. And this is out of Vermont. It's Bernie's stomping grounds. And, see, Vermont, they sent Bernie Sanders to the Senate, right? They are known as again, what I said, sort of a independent, tough bunch. I mean, if you're going to engage in ascribing personality traits to people who just happen to be living in the same geographical area, which is a little dicey. But the New York Times today has a long story about a little town in Vermont called Pawlet. I mean, it's a little town, a few thousand, right? 1,400, that's all. Beautiful area. And some nutcase from New York State with a sketchy backstory bought up 30 acres in the town and transformed it into a training camp for militias. A training camp for people who wanted to, make sure that when things really came down, they would know how to protect themselves and their family. One of the closest neighbors, and it's a very rural area, so one of the closest neighbors, this family called the Tillanders, were a few years ago, this has been going on now for 2 or 3 years, a few years ago, we're sitting outside on a beautiful evening on their back porch. And these are people, by the way, who belong to a sportsman club, who own guns, who enjoy target shooting. And I'll just quote them. Paul Tillander said, all of a sudden we hear ARs, several ARs going off all at the same time, over and over and over. I mean, it sounded like Vietnam. It sounded like a war zone. So people come up there and they enact battle scenarios. There are places set up to look like a suburban home that they can invade. There are large open spaces where they practice vehicle assaults and carjacking. They even have like a shipboard. It looks like a ship, so that they can, maybe know how to deal with I don't know, piracy on the high seas. I don't know. This nutcase who has created this lovely place built it, and boy, the people are coming. They are coming to it. And the neighbors are getting scared. In part because Vermont has a very apparently onerous zoning law that if you want to build anything, you got to jump through a lot of hoops, and this is one of the problems of being on never mind. You have got to get permit after permit after permit. This guy who created this nirvana for lunatics never got a permit. Never got a permit for building the suburban house that gets attacked, for the ship that gets attacked, for any of it. I mean, didn't get permission to have a business out there. So the town residents, who've always gotten along because they obey the laws, they said, hey, this guy, and there's these weird people coming. And so they tried to step in, and they encountered something they'd never encountered. And that was a guy who said, I don't care what you're saying to me. I'm not going anywhere, okay? It's my Second Amendment right. I own this land, blah, blah, blah. The state police have refused to step in. Law enforcement in all forms has refused, when pressed, to step in. And you know why? They're scared. Now, how often do we hear that now? Why did all those Republicans vote the way they did on impeachment, or vote to still suggest that even after the siege, that the election was somehow corrupted? Because they feared Trump, they feared his supporters, because they know, and after January 6th, everybody knows, these people are quite willing to use violence. And here's a place where they're being trained. And the cops, state level down to local level, are afraid to confront them because they've got more guns than the cops do. Here's one of the Tillanders again. Nobody wants to go in there. Everybody's afraid of them. We're pretty certain he has a big cache of heavy-duty weaponry and explosive material. And so this little town that always relied on people behaving in a neighborly fashion, complying with, in a voluntary manner with, here's how we do things. You want to build a chicken coop, you got to go get this permit. This guy builds a training place for patriots, and nothing happens. Because the reality is there's no way to get him out of there without what? Another Waco? And this place that he's created, he called it Slate Ridge. It has a Facebook page and other social media. And let me tell you what's on that. Scary stuff. Posts have called for the, quote, eradication of some of the neighbors, have listed their home addresses. Somebody else said we need an SUV to shoot up and then blow up. And they specified what they were looking for was a particular model. And they had a picture there. It was the picture one of the neighbors had of the car they'd given to their teenage daughter. The feed published a photograph of the little town hall, this little wood frame structure that's been standing in this tiny little town since 1881. And it said under the picture, no alarm, no security cameras, single pane windows, no deadbolts, 30 to 40 minute police response time, dead zone for cell service, no safe room. And then it listed the name of the 6 people who work inside. So here you have an American town held in a state of terror by other armed Americans. And authorities unwilling to confront. This is the America that Donald Trump has unleashed. And none of us have ever seen anything like it. But what I said heading in, Black people have seen this. Getting a sense of what it might have been like. Although I'm sure that town is white. All those good white Americans, American Gothic. And now they are feeling that same constant terror. Because these other white guys are acting up and feeling their oats and feeling threatened, as even they threaten everybody else. Wow. So that's just two of the stories I came across. The armed anti-maskers, and now this training facility that has terrorized an entire little town. And then we have, I guess I saw a little of this before poor Tiger's news came out, we had that hearing about what the hell happened with Capitol Security on January 6th. And I didn't watch much of it, but I happened to be treated to a little bit from one of the more repulsive Republicans in the Senate. That would be Wisconsin's Ron Johnson. Oh my God. See, now here's a guy who, he himself doesn't seem scary to me. He leaves that to the people whose brains he infects, who he continues with his cowardice to give aid and comfort to. So, after all of these police officers are testifying, all of them, the former Senate, former House sergeants at arms, the Capitol Hill police, the DC police, and all unequivocally said to questions from the panel that this was an attack that had been planned and carried out by white supremacists and Trump supporters. And Johnson actually, I shouldn't even give it, but he said that they were fake Trump protesters. Can you imagine? So, guys, I don't see how all of you who say, well, Biden's in, Trump's out, it'll die away eventually, blah, blah, blah. I don't see it. I don't see it. So, I'm just here to tell you that I think I said yesterday that I remember the question being asked on January 6th. Is what we have just seen, is it the end of something? The last gasp of Trump? Was that the end of something? Or more sinisterly, was it just the beginning? And I have no doubt, maybe 2% doubt, that it was just the beginning. And we will let down our guard at our own peril. To some emails, little Tony says, you and me both regarding Tiger. I could not comprehend this obsession with the accident. It was like an obit for hours. Yeah. when I checked Twitter, we weren't the only ones complaining. Oh, really? That's good. I wanted to hear about the hearings that happened that morning. I turned it off the rest of the day. Don't get me wrong, right? I agree the same thing because I wish Tiger all the best. I do too. I really, my heart goes out to him. I mean, my God, poor soul. His life will never be the same. Little Tony says it's like Uncle Dougie used to say, hey, it's all about selling soap. Yeah, well, that's not what they taught us in journalism school. I'm sorry. They told us it's about informing the public of things they damn. And Brooke writes, I had the same reaction when I realized that CNN was going to focus solely on this Tiger Woods story. Oh, this is so funny. She says, Doug Hirth used to always say it's all about selling soap. Oh, God, Doug. Gone but not forgotten, buddy. Brooke writes, you can't forget that when you're watching news. They will do anything to keep you from turning the channel. But what did it do? I turned it off. Little Tony turned it off. I think they're kidding themselves a little bit. I suppose they know. Brooke says, I still maintain this is why Donald Trump won the election. I absolutely agree with you. It's why I said Jeff Zucker, he's the one who made him. His every tweet was so outrageous that news outlets knew they would attract and keep viewers. Every time he showed his god-awful face and his doughboy body, they were there. They were there. And as Brooke rightly predicts, and this weekend it will be endless hours of Donald Trump at CPAC. And I have to tell you, that'll just be the beginning. Mm-hmm. We have a caller. Caller, go ahead, please.
As usual, I forget the reason I called originally because you talked about so many things that enter my head.
Write it down before you.
I did, but then I only got a short period of time. I'm like, what's more prominent? Can I say, I think with what you're talking about like with Tiger Woods and the hearings and what was going on in Maine and this guy buying 30 acres of land and these people at the hunting lodge or whatever the hell they're calling it and forming this militias. It's like a combination of illnesses in this country. We need distraction and we're feeling empty, so we're filling ourselves with shit. Do you know what I mean? Like, these people who are forming these militias, I don't think they have anything going on in their lives, so this is filling it. And it's, and if it's negative energy or negative action, well, damn it, it makes them feel like they're doing something with their, I have to, because I'll tell you
what. Well, listen, Roger, it makes them feel like they have purpose, and it makes them feel like they're patriots. And it makes them feel big and tough, and they're answering the call, and they're latter-day Paul Revere's, and they are being told that that is true. They are being, as they said, as they were in the Capitol, Trump sent for us. The president sent for us. Wow. That's like, Jesus talks to me and the president sends for me. I'm pretty important.
What did we used to do before Facebook and email and
you don't
internet?
Remember? You don't remember?
I mean, people used to have full lives, and it didn't mean that you're doing it on a huge level. I mean, can't people be happy with just like helping out their neighbors and raising kids or grandkids and being good examples. When did we have to like ratchet up our self-importance so much?
I don't know. It's all part of the mediaized, listen, it's all part of everybody wanting to be somebody. I don't know. But boy, has it brought us to a frightening pass. Really, really. I don't know, Roger. I got no answers. I'm just sitting here scared.
Let me ask you this. I mean, I know we're all frightened and everything, but in this day and age, do you and your family and friends that you communicate with, is there a sense of emptiness now? I mean, because of COVID,
No, there's a sense of doom. I wouldn't say emptiness. We were all living, as you said, we were all living lives that were wonderful. I don't know, fine. We were living. We were relatively happy. I'm talking about my extended family and my friends. No, we didn't feel empty. I don't know.
Well, I'm not saying before. I'm saying now. I mean, this like in comparison, way our lives used to be compared to what we're witnessing now. How does that affect each and every one of us internally? Because now I feel like
it can't be good, right? Listen, we've spent a year pretty much stuck in our homes, most of us, many of us. We've forgotten what our lives used to be like, and that fear is everywhere. The fear of death, the fear of losing a loved one, and now the fear of losing our country. That's a lot of loss to be fearing. And I've been saying to everybody who will listen to me that we're all going to have to be treated for PTSD when this thing's over. I mean, we are, even if we're sitting quietly in our homes, a traumatized people.
Well, just so you know, I have a physical scheduled with my doctor next week, and because I think this is physically affecting me. All this
well, sure
past
it
5
is.
years has taken its toll on me. And one of the things I'm gonna talk to him about is like, give me a list of therapists that you think are good, not just a list of therapists, because mine took off for Canada about 2 or 3 years ago.
Hey, I got news for you. Getting a therapist now is no small accomplishment because they're booked from now until God knows when. People are desperate for therapy now. Good luck.
Oh yeah, I mean between the coronavirus and the shit show that's been going on and continues, this is like kind of devastating. What kind of person, what kind of soul, like good person, what do they do to like persevere through this? And that's got to be a unique individual.
We're all doing it. You're persevering in your way. Here you are. You're forming complete sentences. You're talking. You're taking care of yourself. You're going to get a physical. You're still employed. I mean, no, you are. You're doing fine. It's the people with the guns and stuff. Those are the people that aren't doing fine.
Yeah, but they're affecting the good people.
Yes. They're making me very nervous. Hey, thanks for the call.
Okay. All right.
Okay. Bye. It sort of puts me in mind of this scrap of poetry that I so loved when I first read it. And I had to have first read it back in the 60s. Okay. Not to date myself. But it was one of the first times I encountered poetry that was current. In high school, and I think this was in college when I first bumped into this little scrap. It was, the poets were the poets, the English poets, marvelous poets. But contemporary poetry, I didn't know much about. And then I bumped into this one guy, and I bought the book. Well, I'm not sure it was that book, actually, but it's just a scrap. Here's the scrap that to my, 19-year-old or 20-year-old self was comforting, because it reinforced what I, newly out on my own into the world and seeing that it wasn't exactly what I'd been led to believe it was in the sheltered cocoon I'd spent my first 18 years in. And here's the line. I love it. The world is a beautiful place to be born into, if you don't mind happiness not always being so very much fun. That's the line. That's all it is. And that was like no other poetry I'd ever heard. The world is a beautiful place to be born into if you don't mind happiness not always being so very much fun. And I laughed and I thought, It was a little subversive, frankly. And that was from a poem by a guy named Lawrence Ferlinghetti. And I ran off and bought a book of his poetry. I still have it. And this is our obituary today. Lawrence Ferlinghetti. Dead at the age of 101. And he was writing right up until the end. And God bless him. I can't believe the way I was reminded of the poem is that in the large New York Times obituary, that is the thing that they pulled out. Although they pulled out more of it, I always just remembered that. The world is a beautiful place to be born into if you don't mind happiness not always being so very much fun. And then they have another little part of it. If you don't mind the touch of hell now and then, just when everything is fine, because even in heaven, they don't sing all the time. That was a wonderful thing for me at a time in my life when I was, these were the years when, frankly, other than this Trump era, those were the years that were most terrifying to many Americans. We're talking about the mid-60s. It was scary times. Political assassinations. There was some domestic terror going on. There were bombs going off. There were people in the streets. You remember? Martin Luther King killed. Robert Kennedy killed. The violence of this nation was on display. Vietnam, it was something. So the world is a beautiful place to be born into if you don't mind happiness not always being so very much fun. He didn't consider himself that much of a poet. He was a bookstore owner. Yeah. City Lights bookstore in San Francisco, and it is still there. And he thought of poetry as an insurgency, as something that moves things along, changes things. Okay. Lawrence Ferlinghetti. And then because of him, I started reading Ginsberg and then Corso. And man, that stuff, it holds up, if you ask me. I don't know that it's Keats, but it's, it's good stuff. Barbara says, I felt sorry for Tiger Woods. Can't even have a serious car accident without, crazy coverage on national TV. Yes. I thought of that. Can you imagine lives like that? I've been, I don't read biography a lot, but as I said, so I watched the Tiger biography, and now I'm watching this Woody Allen thing, and then I watched also The Last Dance, which was about Michael Jordan. And when you see what America does, what we do to celebrities, and it's interesting because in America now, the people aspire to being a celebrity. Fame is the biggest thing, and of course, it comes with money usually. So those two things get wrapped up together. But none of them, once you achieve the kind of fame that a Michael Jordan or a Tiger Woods has, your life is in many ways ruined. Or if you're a Hollywood celebrity, your life is gone. It's not yours. You live in a state of, you're imprisoned, right? I think it's pretty awful. And a lot of what's happened with Tiger is that it seems that after his big fall, I'm not talking about the accident, the sex stuff, the car accident, the opioid addiction, the losing, the surgeries, all of that stuff, he came back. And everybody who has seen him since says that he seems to have finally found peace, that he enjoys. He's not that, he never used to interact with the people on the courses or even the people he was playing, and now he does. The smile is there. He had finally gotten himself back into a good place, and then this happens, which is why you just feel sorry for him. I mean, you'd feel sorry for anybody who had this kind of a horrific accident, but no, your life gets taken from you. And the way that media does this is, first of all, here's what they love to do. And I mean, we've all seen it 100 million times. They take a person and they build them up. Now the person, ends up in their targeted by them because the person is talented in some way, right? Talented and or beautiful and or whatever, right? And so we shower them with adulation and constant attention, every word they say, every move they make, and we raise them up, up, up. We put them on covers of magazines. We do documentaries on them. We are freaked out if we ever encounter them because they stop being human. They become this thing, a commodity. And it is, with the law of supply and demand, the demand for a commodity of one is, it's unimaginable. And life, any semblance of normal life, is gone. You have to live behind gates and guards. And within that little bubble, I suppose you can have a life. But after we bring them up and put them on those pedestals, then even like the CNNs realize, well, this narrative has gotten a little stale. I mean, how much can we, shower adulation on them? Enough already. Let's find something negative. And so they do. And then it becomes, let's take them back down. And it is done with a relish. And all the people who love seeing them brought high and to even worship them. Join the mob that delights in their fall. And this is American culture. And it's fed to us and enriches the hell out of media owners. Yeah. Which brings me to this. Don't have a lot of time, but today there's another congressional committee hearing. It won't get a lot of attention, I don't think, but it is titled "Fanning the Flames: Disinformation and Extremism in the Media," and this is a hearing before the House Energy and Commerce Committee. And what that committee did is they sent letters out to Comcast, AT&T, Spectrum, Dish, Verizon, all those people who carry cable TV, and they also sent them to Apple, Google, Amazon, Roku, all of those. To the cable, the satellite, all the companies that disseminate media to us and who have done nothing in response to the disinformation that they have aired. Nothing. So that AT&T and Comcast and Dish and Verizon, they carry Newsmax, which has been one of the biggest purveyors of the election being stolen, which resulted in, of course, in death and an insurrection. They carry One American News Network, also promoting all of these falsehoods. They carry Fox. Now, Congress has no real power to force them, these carriers, to drop certain networks. I brought this up maybe a month ago, that you and I, if we have a cable provider, we are helping subsidize Fox News and Newsmax. We're helping subsidize because they carry them and our money goes to them. And because these cable channels they aren't licensed by the FCC. So there's no federal regulation. So what the hell do you do? So this is a first step to bring these people forward and to say, and some of the questions they're planning on asking them, are you planning to continue carrying Newsmax and Fox and these purveyors of absolute false information that is helping to rip our country apart? Let us know. And if you are, why are you? Well, of course, they'll say First Amendment, First Amendment, First Amendment. They're also going to ask, what are you intending to do now that you know what has happened? Did you take any steps prior to and following the election and the January 6th attacks? Did you do anything? No. And are you planning to continue to do nothing? No. So what they're doing with this hearing today is they're flushing these guys out, establishing a factual record that the disinformation they put out on the election and on the pandemic literally killed people. And the only people who've been able to get at these purveyors of deathly falsehoods are these private companies like Dominion who have sued him, scared the hell out of him, sued him. But the government doesn't have any way to get at them. And I wonder if this will get any coverage at all, because stop and think, is CNN going to cover this? Maybe. Is Fox going to cover this? Well, maybe, because they'll say, see, they're coming at us. They're going to stifle our free speech rights. I don't know. It'll be interesting to see. But I wanted you to know that was happening. And just quickly I see we're out of time, but let me just get quickly some of your emails in. Romy writes, we're all going to need existential therapy and social skills training. I absolutely agree with you. The right-wing nuts are fatalists by nature and training who do not believe in hope and are using the only skills they have: guns, bluster, and dogmatic faith. To expect them to become well-informed at this point is an act of radical optimism or delusion, I would add. We on the left must realize that they are doing the best they can. We need to reform America in a way that offers them a hope. Yeah. Well, that is true. I mean, they've been failed. They've been failed in many ways by, it's always the Republicans, though. The Republicans and their war on poor people. Their refusal to hold up kind of a, in other countries, people don't live with the despair that we live with here, that so many live with here, because they have governments that hold them up, that offer safety nets, and we don't. And we don't because of Republicans and the people who support them. It's a kind of mean-spirited, I don't know, it probably came over with the friggin' Puritans. It's a mean-spirited kind of cruel, just cruel as hell worldview. And it's a controlling and dogmatic one. And it's an unforgiving one. Oh, Romy writes, our task will be not unlike that of a therapist, dealing with depressed or anxious clients who we must guide them to a future where they matter. Well, I think you're talking about policy then. You're talking about give them a sense of hope again, that they can rise. But a lot of this, Romy, you're pulling out the racial thing. And that's a huge part of it. You're pulling out the racial thing. There's nothing we could do for these people if what they really fear is that black, brown, other people who don't look like them or worship God differently or don't worship God at all, or who, love people of the same gender, that they are going to somehow supplant them. I don't know how we tell them that is not going to happen. It is. So what you got going on here, besides what I know you're acknowledging, is this true white nationalistic fear. All their lives, they were told one thing, which gave them a sense of, pride. They were told that no matter what, and no matter how hard things are for you, you're better than those people. And in every way, we will hold you up and show you that. There's nothing we can do about that. All right, and just one more. Beth writes, when Tiger came back and won the 19 Masters, Jim Nance and Nick Faldo had to bring up the affairs, the opioid addiction, blah, 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 rather than celebrating this amazing achievement. Compared to the 2020 Masters champ, Dustin Johnson, who was suspended twice in his career for cocaine use. And those two never brought that up once. Yeah. You know why? Because Dustin Johnson, even though golf aficionados, know who he is and he's a celebrity to them, he's not known by one name, a single name, and his face is not recognizable all over the world, right? You take him up and you bring him down. I wish him all the best. Okay, guys, listen, I have to get this shot later today, and I don't know if it's possible there won't be a show tomorrow if I'm having, some people get a reaction where they're sick. And if I'm not feeling well, I might not be able to do the show tomorrow, but I'm intending to, okay? I'm just telling you that. But if you tune in and there ain't nobody there, I'll be lying in my bed acting sick, okay? I hope I talk to you tomorrow. And otherwise, I'll see you Monday. Enjoy this sun. Wow. Bye.
Lynn Cullen Live, Monday through Friday from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. and archived at pghcitypaper.com. The opinions expressed on Lynn Cullen Live are those of the host and do not necessarily reflect the viewpoints of Pittsburgh City Paper or its advertisers.